The Baltimore Ravens beef up their trenches during day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft. They take Roger Rosengarten at number 62 and Adisa Isaac at number 93. We talk about what it means for the Ravens, get into both players, and a lot more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, coming to you from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. And I mean, literally, we are here at midnight. So thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen today. We're free and available always on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube and in audio form wherever you get your shows. 5 days a week, plus a lot more during draft week. But sometimes we do bonus shows, these live streams as well. Really exciting, especially with the draft. We have a lot of content for you on Locked On Ravens. And today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Whew, it's been a hectic week. I'll tell you that. Day 2 of the draft officially in the books. The Ravens making 2 selections. So we're going to dive into both of those guys. Roger Rosengarten. His name's a little bit of a tongue twister for me. I got to get it right. Roger Rosengarten was the pick at number 62 for the Ravens on the offensive line. Then Adisa Isaac comes to Baltimore as their edge guy in round 3 at number 93. So we'll talk about it, talk about grades, talk about strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons, why the Ravens made these moves, and a lot more. Than obviously day 3. We're starting up again tomorrow. We're going to be talking about some day 3 targets for the Ravens positions as well. So really appreciate everybody for tuning in today. And again, be sure to subscribe, follow along both video form and audio form. Tell a friend, tell a family member. We are here for you 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens content. See Joe Radke, my man Joe Radke in the chat. Let's go, KO, here to help us wash that loss. Yeah, if you're an Orioles fan, I think you know the Orioles suffered a pretty brutal loss tonight. And the draft, I think, made some people feel better. Adam saying so far it's been a good draft. Shantae saying solid draft so far. And now Brandon with another opinion saying this has been a bad draft for me. The only pick that I love was Roger Rosengarten. So we're going to dive into all that. Let's start with Roger Rosengarten, as Brandon ended up saying there. There were a couple of options on the board for Baltimore at number 62 here. I think the big debate, the topic here was, are you going to take Kingsley from BYU, or are you going to go out and maybe a Rosengarten was the pick? And there was some rumblings that the Ravens really loved Rosengarten, and that was kind of where they were targeting. It's almost like the Nate Wiggins thing last night, right, on Thursday, when the Ravens were like, oh, well, we were joking about Nate Wiggins being there. We really like Nate Wiggins, but they ended up getting him. They seemed like the same thing where Baltimore really fell in love with a guy, and then he ended up being available. So Rosengarten is around 6'5", 308 pounds. Now for him, some of his biggest strengths, and I think this is what we were kind of talking about when the Ravens lost their starters on the offensive line. I think when people talked about an offensive line reset, a lot of people wanted to see more athletic offensive linemen. And Roger Rosengarten certainly is an athletic offensive lineman, ran a sub-5 40-yard dash, and can get out into space and move really effectively. So to me, that I think is a super big strength for Baltimore, because we know the Ravens love pulling guys out into space, getting guys to the second level. Rosengarten is very smooth at finishing one block and then moving to the second level pretty seamlessly. And that's something that the Ravens really, really value in their offensive linemen. Rosengarten has around 33.5-inch arms and scored in the upper 9s, I believe, on the RAS, which is the athletic testing score out of 10. So the Ravens really like that. His height and weight aren't necessarily at the very, very top of that, but you look at his athletic traits and measurables, I think overall Baltimore can sacrifice, and they feel comfortable enough sacrificing some of those measurables to get some of the other athletic traits that he has. His foot quickness is very good. His hand placement is very good. You like to see a lot of those things in an offensive lineman, especially somebody in Rosengarten who is going to be competing, I believe, for that right tackle spot. Obviously, I think you can plug and play him. Now, it's going to be a competition between him and Daniel Falele for that right tackle job, in my opinion. I think Rosengarten ends up winning. Just an early prediction. I'm not counting Falele out, but I would assume they want to get immediate production from their draft picks. So that's my initial prediction. But to me, I think there's a lot to look at here. And actually, I see a comment from Abby saying, "Bring back OBJ." We have stuff to talk about with that. In terms, I don't even know when to do it. I mean, we have so much content. We'll talk about it on this show, but I want to dedicate a little bit to it as well. So we're going to talk about that a lot too. But for him and Rosengarten, some of the concerns range more so in the pad level. You can sometimes get a little overmatched, whether it be by speed rushers, and sometimes he can get too aggressive in his pass sets. But in my opinion, it was really only between Kingsley and Rosengarten for me. And I think that, look, I would have probably preferred Kingsley by a hair, but I think the trade-off is Kingsley has the higher ceiling overall, but he's not as ready to play now as Rosengarten is. And I think if you're the Ravens, your reasoning for this pick is, they want to win now. And I still think Kingsley's going to contribute. He obviously goes one pick later to the Chiefs. So, I think it was 2 picks. Maybe it was 1. I think the Chiefs traded up. But, I mean, either one of those guys would have been completely fine for me as well. Look, we knew the Ravens, they needed to get an offensive lineman at 62. The Wiggins pick was fine as long as they got an offensive lineman at 62. And you look back on it, very side note-y right here, but Eric DeCosta is looking like a little bit of a genius with that Nate Wiggins pick if you want to talk about the run-on corners that happened after it. There weren't, as I talked about last night and this morning for Locked On Ravens, there weren't any offensive linemen worthy of that 30th pick once Tyler Guyton went off the board. So you didn't want to reach for a guy like a Rosengarten, for example, or a Kingsley, for example. But then look what happened. If you had done that run of corners goes off the board. And I'm not saying there weren't any quality guys available at 62, but I would much rather have Wiggins and Rosengarten over Rosengarten and whatever. I think Renardo Green went at like the last pick or something. So I would rather have what the Ravens did over something along those lines as well. So there's a lot to like about the Rosengarten pick. The Ravens needed a tackle. A lot of guys went. I mean, the alt pick at 5, they were never going to be in that range or Fuaga range. There was a little bit of hope that Fatanu would have fell, but with the medicals. But again, once Guyton went at 30, there was no other player offensive line-wise that I would have taken there. So you get a guy at 62 that I think you can immediately plug and play in there, fits the athletic profile the Ravens like. And overall, it feels like the Ravens had their eye on this guy, much like Nate Wiggins. And sometimes it just come down to the board, right? I mentioned it last night. We do all these mock drafts. We speculate. We talk about positions of need and how rosters change. But the Ravens are a BPA team. They will take the guy that they feel like is the best player available. And I feel like the Ravens not only thought Rosengarten was probably the best player available still on their board, but he's a guy that actually fit in a need there. So I think the Ravens would have taken an offensive lineman at 62 regardless. I mean, we then saw guys like, there were multiple different offensive linemen that went off the board after that. So I'm glad they were able to secure their need when they did. I see Joe saying, where's Joe's comment? A guy with the name Allstriker saying a name is a tongue twister. I don't know what to tell you, Joe. It's been a long weekend, but it's been a grind, which is fun. FMB saying I want different picks, but I think the picks we got next year will actually enjoy their production. And yeah, I mean, look, I think Rosengarten is more ready to play right now than Adisa Isaac. I think Isaac is going to be more of a project player that doesn't see the field a ton. But I said that about Tavius Robinson last year. I said project player, not going to see the field a ton. And Tavius played a super big role. So we're just not going to know until it starts. Adam's saying we got players that can play for us right away, no developmental players. I think Isaac has a lot of development he can do, but he can still, if the Ravens want to put him in a role, they can. I think he's ready to do certain things, but other stuff, I think the ceiling is super high on him to where he already has a somewhat level floor, but to him, the ceiling, it's all the way up there as well. I see Mike saying Rogers a great pick. The Huskies tore it up. Yeah, that Huskies team went off the board pretty quickly as you talk about the Ravens and what's going on with Baltimore. They needed that an offensive lineman. They need to take a guy from a really good program, made the national championship. Now, Rosengarten didn't go as high as Michael Penix, right? That was not the case. But I still think that value-wise, Rosengarten actually was a quick riser throughout the draft process. Well, maybe not quick. I'll say a late. He was a late riser. I'll rise it to that. I was seeing him getting some early second-round hype. There were even a couple mocks I saw where he was getting like very late first-round consideration, like to the Chiefs at 32, for example. So to me, I like this pick for the Ravens. Again, I would have preferred Kingsley by a hair, but you look at why the Ravens did it. I understand the reasoning 10,000% there. And I see Mike saying he doesn't know anything about Adisa. We'll talk about Adisa Isaac in the second segment here, as we're going to be diving into the edge rush position as a whole. But now you look at the Ravens offensive line. Ronnie Stanley, and this is the potential Ravens offensive line. Ronnie Stanley, Andrew Voorhees, Tyler Linderbaum, Ben Cleveland, and Roger Rosengarten. I'd say that's solid. I mean, that's not going to necessarily blow you away. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of what ifs on that line. Can Voorhees get back to who he was pre-injury? Ben Cleveland, is he a player that can take that Ben Powers type leap in year 4 in a contract year? And obviously, Rosengarten, how fast can he adjust to the NFL level? But I still think the athletic profile of Rosengarten gives him a really solid upper hand. And I know that Faalele is somebody that had his moments last season, but he also struggled at times. I think the Ravens are looking for consistency. They're looking for guys who can get out into space and run consistently. So to me, I think that there's a lot of potential with Roger Rosengarten here as well. I'm trying to look for more Rosengarten comments. I see F&B saying Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Cleveland, Roger could be a decent line in front of Lamar and Henry. I agree. I would not be shocked if they were to add one more offensive lineman. Apparently, the Ravens really like Puny out of Kansas, but he ended up getting taken by San Francisco. Apparently, it was a flip-flop. Apparently, San Francisco liked Rosengarten. Baltimore stole him, and then Baltimore apparently liked Puny, and then the 49ers stole him. So it was kind of like, oh, we're going to get back at you for that one. But I think that Baltimore will probably add at least one more offensive lineman. Would not be shocking whatsoever if they did. Again, trying to see if there are any more here. James, this is a really good question. I want to talk about this. Can Rosengarten be a 2025 left tackle after Stanley leaves? I think it's possible. Rosengarten, one of the things that you really like about him is his versatility. Played right tackle at Washington, but does have experience on the left side. So I think if you love Rosengarten on the left side if you're the Ravens, and you feel like he can be your long-term option there, or you find another player you want to put at right tackle, it's not going to be this painful transition of moving somebody over who has no experience. If Stanley leaves, if that's what happens, he plays out 2024, he chopped off the year on that contract. If that's what happens, I do think that if they find a right tackle, not named Rosengarten, that they like, you can move Rosengarten to the left side and then place that other guy on the right side as well. So if I had to give a grade, I'll give this one an A-, right? I think it was a really good pick for the Ravens. I like it a lot. And to me, it was at a position of need. It was one of the best players available still at that position. And the Ravens did their homework on him. They really liked him. And I think Garrett Castle's on the benefit of the doubt for these. Now, hopefully, he pans out a little better than the Ravens' other second-round picks over the course of their franchise history. Not a lot of hits in that second round. Hopefully, Rosengarten can be the latest one on that. Coming up, though, we're going to be talking about Adisa Isaac, talking about the edge rusher position, what he brings to the table here, and a lot more. So stay tuned. This is a live edition of Locked On Ravens here at midnight on Friday night, obviously early Saturday morning. We'll talk about Adisa Isaac coming up next here on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be 100% sure and find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And for me, I've had a ton of great experiences over on LinkedIn, whether it's finding jobs, networking, connecting with people. LinkedIn makes it super easy for the entire job process. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is consistently finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write the job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, so you can post your job for free on LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode of your favorite Locked On podcast is brought to you by the best meal kit service in the game, Home Chef. No more having to answer the dreaded question, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Thanks to Home Chef and their chef-designed recipes that are delivered directly to my door, all pre-packaged, pre-portioned. They even peel the garlic cloves for you. And each recipe, one of my favorites, Black and Mahi, comes with a full page of easy-to-read instructions that include customization options and pictures to guide you along the way through the step-by-step process, so you don't have to ask, is that what chard looks like? I cannot recommend Home Chef enough, especially right now, because for a limited time, Home Chef is giving Locked On listeners 18 free meals free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box if you head to homechef.com/lockedon today. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Yes, you heard that right. Homechef.com/lockedon. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
We're back. Our second segment here, Locked On Ravens Live. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here after day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft. The Ravens adding in the trenches. They take Roger Rosengarten in the second round, Adisa Isaac in the third round. We talked about Rosengarten a lot. Seems like the consensus on him, really quality pick, a position where you really needed it if you were the Ravens, and they get a really quality player there. But let's talk about Adisa Isaac. I'd say the more controversial out of the 2 picks by a pretty wide margin. Now, Isaac is someone, Penn State edge rusher, where have we heard that one before? Obviously, Odafe Owe comes in a couple of years ago. And, I mean, talking about Owe, I don't want people to base the Isaac pick off of Owe, but I do understand, I'm sure not a lot of people are doing that, and there are still other reasons why might not be the pick a lot of people want. Now, just a bit of background on Isaac. Let's start there. 6'4", 247. And for me, he's someone who can bull rush effectively. Laterally, he has a lot of agility. So you really like that in a specific player, but sometimes his awareness isn't all the way there. There's not a ton of push consistently from him in certain one-on-ones, especially when he's matched up against stronger offensive linemen. So I think that the development and the ceiling is there. Plus, there were a lot of wide receivers that a lot of people liked. I think Troy Franklin, out of Oregon, was the one that a lot of people had their eye on. But to me, this is a pick that the Ravens made more so, honestly, for depth purposes. Like, I think for me, this is not a bad pick. It's not the pick I would have made personally. It's no disrespect to Adisa Isaac either. He has first of all, an incredible story. You should go. I put a tweet out on it. You should listen to his story because it's incredible. But it's a guy that probably isn't going to play a bunch for the Ravens in year 1, I would say. Now, in terms of everybody in the comments who's talking about Adisa Isaac right now, I see the majority are not super, super happy with the pick at this point. And I think that it's fine overall. He had 7.5 sacks last year, I believe. So that was more than, I think, for a lot of people. It's like, oh, well, sacks all that matter with the edge guys. Obviously, that's not the case. You have to look at traits. He again, is an athletic player with strength, but I just think that it's a pick that, I don't know. I would have probably taken a wide receiver or another offensive lineman. The issue, though, is that I don't know what offensive lineman I would have taken at 93. I mean, Christian Mahogany was still there out of Boston College. I mean, maybe that could be it. But the Ravens apparently felt like Isaac was the best player. I haven't had a chance to look at what John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta had to say about the move. But at least you know that you're able to get a guy in that has potential. Now, on the flip side of this, let's look at the Ravens edge rusher room right now. It's Kyle Van Noy, Odafe Owe, David Ojabo, Adisa Isaac, Tavius Robinson, Malik Ham. So that's 6 guys. I think I counted that right. Right? Kyle Van Noy, Odafe Owe, David Ojabo. Yeah, 6. 6 guys. Good math going on by me. But do you bring in another guy? Like, I think a lot of the consensus was, oh, Baltimore's just going to sign another edge rusher, another veteran guy off of the market. On the compensatory pick formula, that kind of goes out the window. Well, if you like Malik Ham enough, you're not getting rid of Tavius Robinson, not getting rid of Isaac, obviously, and any of the other guys. So are you keeping 7 edge rushers? I mean, usually teams only keep around 5. I mean, 6 is that's a lot. I mean, some teams only keep 4. So it feels like the Ravens are going to trust Kyle Van Noy, and then as they did with the wide receiver position, it feels like, at least so far, we're going to see how it unfolds, but at least so far, they're trusting their depth at the edge position as well, but not just any depth. They're trusting their young depth. So that's interesting. And again, it's like Troy Franklin was looking really nice. Tez Walker's another guy. I see Buddha Christ saying Brendan Rice, Javon Baker, Tez Walker, Troy Franklin, all those guys. Adam saying there are a lot of good wide receivers left. 100% they are. And I see Mike, another thing. Everyone wants wide receiver because they have the sexy role, but we need the offensive line pick. I mean, yes, I think that the Rosengarten pick was the right selection. I would have probably gone wide receiver at 93, but I think Isaac is okay. Not like the best pick I've ever seen, right? I think that out of the 3, if I had to rank favorites, the more I look at Nate Wiggins, the more I just love the pick for the Ravens. I think it's literally in order. I think Wiggins is the guy. Rosengarten is another pick I like, but I put him a little below Wiggins. And then Isaac is the pick that I'm like, we're going to see how it pans out. And we have Mims here saying this was a very good draft. It was the best they could do. Wiggins will be a star. He'll be elite at corner, which I think Wiggins is going to be great. And I see as we got some of the Ryan Ripken crew in here. I see Joe. Where's Zach getting the chat? Zach should have been here. Zach's not here. He's missing out. And then Cube, what's up, Cube? Saying, Kevin, I appreciate you tuning in, man. Adam saying the defense is going to be crazy, 100%. Joe saying Cleveland's been a bust. He has been. But I think, Joe, what I'm talking about with Cleveland is Ben Powers was widely considered a bust for the Ravens until that contract year. We're in the same situation with Ben Cleveland as well. I see Andre saying, if we don't pick a wide receiver next, I'm going to be so angry. Wide receiver should be the pick there. Now, I'm not, look, I would pick wide receiver personally, right? So don't shoot the messenger here. But I do think that they could take a running back. They could take another offensive lineman. They could take a safety. Those are other positions, maybe defensive line. I'm looking there. Joe's saying grabbing a quarterback and running back on day 3. I expect both those picks, especially running back. Backup quarterback also is another one as well. But Adam with some good perspective here, saying, remember, we have 6 picks left, which I think is a really good thing to put in here as well, because the Ravens aren't going to take 5 offensive linemen, 5 edge rushers, 5 corners, right? They're going to spread this thing out. So there are probably going to be a couple of picks later on day 3, later today, that are going to be, why are you taking that position? Why are the Ravens doing that? Now, fullback, look, I'll join everybody and being like, what? This makes no sense. But I think Baltimore will probably double dip at 1 or 2 positions, offensive line being one of them, and then they'll add others as well. I see a lot of day 3 conversation. I feel like everybody is looking for that conversation. So we'll head into our final part of the show here. But first, just to wrap up on Adisa Isaac, someone with a lot of potential, could have a smaller role on the Ravens defense this year. But again, if injuries don't happen, and knock on wood they don't, obviously, you hear me knocking, it's going to be Kyle Van Noy, Adafe Owe, and David Ajabo with some Tavius Robinson probably sprinkled in there as the big 3. So I'll give the Adisa Isaac pick a B minus, B, maybe C plus, like in that range, C plus to B. So I guess I'll round it up to a B minus. I'll round up and round down, get in the middle there, and call a B minus on the Adisa Isaac pick. So I think it was an A for Nate Wiggins, A minus for Roger Rosengarten, and B minus for Adisa Isaac. Not a bad start to the draft here for Eric DeCosta, but we still have one more day. Crazy. I've been on camera for like 10 hours in the last 24 hours here, and we're not stopping anytime soon. Coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be talking about some day 3 targets, which wide receivers the Ravens could target, other sneaky needs, other sneaky targets, and a lot more. Stay tuned. We got a lot to get to on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show was brought to you by Monopoly Go. And I've been told I'm a competitive person, and that is certainly true. I do have a competitive side. We all do. My competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities to bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them run on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. But now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself, and the leaderboard show me who their biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves you can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. To get it on the game and join your friends, download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. We are back with Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostraker still talking with you here on this Saturday, technically Saturday, April 27th, the 2024 day 3 of the NFL draft begins in just less than 12 hours now. So we're going to be back grinding here. Busiest week of the year for me, but I love it. I love doing this. Obviously, we did on Thursday. I was on the Ryan Ripken show. We did a huge live stream there, tons of guests. And then obviously after that, I hopped on, did a live stream after the Locked On Ravens, and then did the Friday episode. We're doing this live stream. Just finished up a live stream on Bleacher Report for 4 hours, doing this. And then obviously we're going to have a show coming out, bonus episode for Saturday. And then we're going to do another live stream after the draft on Saturday. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Later today, we'll do a live stream after day 3. And then we'll have a bonus episode out for Sunday. Crazy how busy this week is. The Ravens making 3 picks. They have 6 more, though. Now, do we expect the Ravens to make a move? That's a very interesting topic here, because I thought maybe they could have done something on day 2. Eric DeCosta said they were considering trading up for maybe Rosengarten. They had a team that was going to trade up with the Ravens, but then ended up bouncing at the last second and saying, not great. So maybe they could make an early day a day 3 move with maybe a 4th rounder. They have 3 picks in the 200s right now. Maybe they do that as well. Now I'm trying to catch up on the comments here. I see them right now. We've got a lot of them, so I apologize. I'm catching up on comments from 10 minutes ago. We have James Alexander saying, what wide receiver options do you see the Ravens getting in round 4? And I think actually I'm going to go back up to the comment we got a little earlier. I thought that it was a really great encapsulation from Buddha, who said Brendan Rice, Javon Baker, Tez Walker, Troy Franklin. All those guys would be great. I had Tez as like a late 2nd round guy. Troy Franklin was getting 1st round buzz a while ago. Baker is someone who was getting 2nd round buzz. Brendan Rice was more in the 3rd, 4th round territory. Any 4 of those guys to me would be great. I don't think Troy Franklin lasts, but I mean, the Ravens have 113. That kind of changes things with that Morgan Moses trade. It's in that range where Daniel Falele was taken a couple years ago, where he had some 2nd round grades on him. It was pretty consensus, but he ended up slipping to the 4th. And people value the beginnings of both day 2 and day 3 in terms of picks, where they want to just get up. They want to get up there and get those players, because there are guys who were consensus day 2 guys who fall to day 3, day 1 guys who fall to day 2. You want to be on top of that if you're a team. So for me, in my opinion, I think a wide receiver should be the pick at 113, but the Ravens can be unpredictable at times, so it's all right. Who do you believe the Ravens will pick in the 4th round? Offensive line and wide receiver. Yeah, so there are 2 picks there. I think it will be offensive line and wide receiver, and then in the 5th, the other picks, I think they'll get a running back in there, maybe a safety, maybe a backup quarterback as well. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Adam's saying Jerry Rice's son is still out there as well. Yep, Brendan Rice. I think that would be very quality as well. Mike saying, I'm seeing a lot of comments saying Adisa fell further than anyone expected. Seems like Adisa pulled off a good pick in 93. Adisa had 2nd round grades. Adisa was a 2nd round player to a lot of people. I think some of the backlash with it, and I wouldn't even call it backlash, honestly, but some of the discontent with the pick, if there is that, and I have seen it, it comes with, 1, it wasn't a wide receiver. We do know the Ravens and the wide receiver discourse has been there over the course of literally forever now. But 2, I think that a lot of people just feel like with the Kyle Van Noy thing, you could have afforded to take an edge a little earlier. Austin Booker still on the board from Kansas. But Isaac, in my opinion, didn't really get a lot of draft love, but is still a very quality player as well. Joe saying Kevin never sleeps. You are correct, Joe. I do not sleep. Went to bed about 6 a.m. last night. Was back at it doing an Oriole stream for Ryan. So yeah, my sleep schedule is not something you should strive to have. But you know what, in this industry, just got to play with it, man. It's what happens. FMB saying we're getting another wide receiver, but challenge the offense. Use what we have more efficiently. First, likely needs more production, and Bateman needs more plays drawn up, less screens for Zay for sure. I think the Ravens force-fed Zay a lot early in the season. I think Todd Monken kind of went away from that a little bit, but it was pretty bad early on. And then to me, I just think it's about balancing out, right? It's about balancing out the rest of the offense, where if you're going to trust Bateman in this offense, you have to get him more targets. Now, we got the comment earlier about Odell Beckham. Ramey, who's very popular on Ravens Twitter, put out a tweet about saying Odell run it back, and Odell kind of put the shush emojis, and then Lamar was getting in on like, oh, I'm so excited. So was that about Odell? I don't see a fit for Odell. I mean, if the Ravens don't draft a wide receiver, then I guess that could be the move. But it's just someone looking over Bateman's shoulder. I get the veteran consistency and everything, but if the offense doesn't change to being a more balanced offense, we're just going to be back in the mode of, okay, well, one of Bateman or Beckham is going like 2 for 27 every game, and that's not what you need, especially for a guy like Bateman who needs to continue to develop and get touches. So that's where I am there. Joe saying, does a day 3 quarterback sit behind Lamar until the next contract negotiation start? Not many quarterbacks getting the 3rd contract with same team anymore. It's interesting. I mean, I think the reason, Joe, I'm looking at backup quarterback is because the Ravens Josh Johnson's not a long-term solution there. We don't really know who Malik Cunningham is at this point, even though there's a lot of buzz and excitement about him. So a guy like Joe Milton makes a lot of sense to me. And honestly, I mean, look, you're seeing guys fall. Spencer Rattler fell, and there are a couple other guys too who I think were expected to be taken in the 2nd or 3rd rounds and just didn't. So I think that's going to push other guys down. Now, I'm not saying Baltimore should go take Spencer Rattler at 113, right? Please, if you're the Ravens, don't do that. But I think if you go with one of those 3 200s picks, that could be an option there as well. Brandon checking in saying, great draft by EDC. The way the board is falling to that wizard is amazing. His board still has to be stacked for day 3. Hoping the South Dakota State combo of offensive tackle and guard for Kamara too. I don't know if the Ravens are double dipping at edge. I feel like Kamara got a lot of late round buzz as well, or late draft process buzz as well. I don't know if the Ravens will double dip at edge. I just don't think there's another spot with Van Noy, Ajabo, Owe, and then you now have Isaac in the fold, Tavius Robinson, that's already 5, and then the team likes Malik Ham a lot. So I don't even know if they're going to sign a veteran at this point, if we're being honest. Kool-Aid's, yeah, we have Biz saying we need a late round running back. Kool-Aid went to, where'd he go? He went to the Saints, I think. But we have Biz saying we need a late round linebacker. I could see it, especially for special teams value as well. Brandon saying, I feel like EDC be getting too passive on moving up to get the players he wants. I think, was there a quote from Eric DaCosta earlier? I was browsing through as I was getting ready for the stream. I didn't have a chance to look like closely, but apparently EDC said that he was going to trade up, but then he got scared. Is that the quote that I saw? I don't know if I did see that or not. If that's the case, I just don't know if that was the draft capital was too much or they felt like Rosengarten was going to fall. I don't know exactly what that was, but I'm not necessarily sure. Yeah, Joe, lots of energy drinks. I feel you. Actually, I'm not a huge energy drink guy. You know, I'm more on the, and I'll say this on Ryan's show, I'm more of an apple juice person. I'm a big apple juice guy. I like, or Gatorade. For me, I do the Gatorades, but apple juice, it's chef's kiss. FMB saying exactly. I agree. No Odell, more likely, and Bateman along with Henry and Keaton is more than enough. I don't have a problem with Odell, right? I think if he was the guy, you make it work, but you make it work in a reduced role. Right? He's a guy that loves getting the ball. Everybody loves getting the ball. I'm not dissing him for wanting to get the ball. That is something that you should want as a receiver. But to me, if the Ravens are serious about Rashad Bateman and his development, you do not re-sign Odell Beckham. That's just where I am. The reason you extend Rashad Bateman is because you believe in his ability. You believe that he can do what he can do with the potential that he has in the role that he's going to get. So to me, I just don't think there's a fit with Odell in Baltimore anymore with them placing this much trust and belief in Bateman. I would love a veteran receiver to come in, right? I would love that. But to me, that's more of a, hey, go get a Cortland Sutton, right? Go get someone like that. Odell, to me, had some moments in Baltimore. Obviously, was great off the field. I think he played a role for them. But if you're bringing him back in, there is going to be the, all right, well, who's the number 2, who's the number 3 conversation. And with Bateman, I just kind of thought, all right, well, I thought we were done with that with the Bateman extension. Patrick saying best pass catcher available could be Jatavion Sanders from Texas. Yep, Cowing also interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they take Jatavion. I mean, they're still trying to work out how to use Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews on the field together. Now, what they could do is, and this is going to hurt Kadri Ismail's soul here, is going to almost, if you want to trade Charlie Kohler and take Jatavion, you could. Jatavion was getting second-round buzz. Jatavion's a really good player. But I don't know. I feel like if you're looking at how to involve Andrews and Likely on the field together, you got to get that down first. I just don't think they've been consistent enough in doing that. They haven't really had a bunch of 2 tight end sets, 2 tight end looks with those as well. But we're going to see. So I think day 3 positionally, you're looking at, I mean, wide receiver has to be one. I think they double dip at offensive line. There's no question about that as well. I think we see a running back taken. I think Braylon Allen's a guy I would love. If you were listening to me on Locked On Ravens every day, you know my stance on running backs. Day 3, free for all. Go get a guy. Now, I still take a wide receiver at number 113, but Jalen Wright is still there. Braylon Allen is still there. If one of those 2 guys were the pick, you get value there. It's not like you're taking them in the 3rd round on day 2 here. So to me, that's what I like. In terms of, all right, go get a running back. You could go a later guy as well. I expect backup quarterback to be another one as well. I mentioned that too. Safety, the Ravens need some Geno Stone guys as well, or Geno Stone replacement. So could be looking at a player like that. Again, we're not going to see 5 wide receivers, 5 offensive linemen. We're not going to see that. They're going to spread things out. And again, I give Eric DaCosta, if we're talking about Wiggins and Rosengarten and Isaac, I'll give him a solid B+, B, right in that range right there. I think that the Wiggins pick, the Rosengarten pick, 2 really solid ones. Isaac is one that wasn't my favorite pick in a vacuum, but I think is a really solid player that was getting 2nd-round grades, and that to me, I think it's a reason why it was maybe a BPA pick there. And as the draft goes on, there's more reason for BPA, right? I mean, first rounders, you want to take some need, guy that will be able to plug and play for you for the most part, depends on where you are as a team. But once you start getting later in the draft, teams start swinging at potential, swinging at traits. And so I think we're getting to that point now for the Ravens where, look, if there's a really quality player that falls, the Ravens are certainly going to scoop them up. I mean, we've seen them do that for the entirety of their franchise history. I see Biz saying Odell's better than Sutton. I don't know, man. I'd personally take Sutton over Odell right now. I mean, I guess you can factor in contract and everything there. But I think to me, I'd take certainly Sutton too. For me, it's Sutton over Odell. I know for you, Biz, is Odell over Sutton. Joe saying I got a vivid picture of Kevin sipping on Matt's juice boxes. Not juice box. I mean, the Mott's is top tier, by the way. Yeah, I appreciate you liking some apple juice too, Joe. And FMB saying, why not slide Likely in the slot with Bateman and Zay on the field? And Andrews, what do you think about that? I always felt like that might be our best formation. I like the idea of moving Likely all around the field, right? I like the idea of that, putting him on the outside, putting him in the slot. You can do a lot with both Andrews and Likely on the field at the same time, plus the versatility of other guys like the receivers on the roster. I like that idea. Likely in the slot is dangerous, especially, I mean, we're seeing safeties move up there now, so that teams can match that a little better than they could a couple years ago. But I think that's a really quality idea, FMB. I like that a lot. Brandon saying day 3, Ray Davis, Tracy Jr., Kamara, another offensive tackle, safety, Vaki, Taylor, Maryland safety. Yeah, Ray Davis. And I forgot about Ray Davis. That's another one. Thank you for reminding me, Brandon. That's a good one, too. Vaki's a guy that I think fits what the Ravens need right now. I don't think Jaden Hicks got taken. I think that'd be a best player available if Ravens were to go there. I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. And then Mike saying it's been 12 years. You know what that means. Year Tuesday is going to ball out. You have 12 years. Every 12 years, the Ravens apparently win a Super Bowl. So we're going to see if that's the trend. Brandon saying, I'm concerned about EDC banking on Rashad having a breakout year, not at a wide receiver. That's the risk, Brandon. There is certainly a risk in that. I mean, they believe in him enough where they're going to do that, but we're going to see, because I think the Bateman extension in a vacuum was a good move, but if it doesn't pan out, the risk in this is, well, Bateman hasn't consistently produced and hasn't stayed consistently healthy, so that's the issue. Patrick saying Johnny Wilson is 6'7". And talk about big body, Johnny Wilson. I know some people love Wilson, some people hate Wilson. I'm indifferent to Johnny Wilson personally. And then a Shinobi saying Rice or Baker. Either of those guys, Shinobi, would be really good. So wide receiver, I think, in the chat is the consensus for the Ravens at number 113. I would love it. I would love them to do that, but we're going to see how it all unfolds on day 3. Really appreciate everybody tuning into this live edition of Locked On Ravens today. Really exciting stuff. We're going to be back here tomorrow after day 3 of the draft. We're going to be wrapping up everything there. We're also going to be diving more into the Ravens picks from days 1 and 2 and grading everything out. So we'll do a live show later today. But first, there's going to be a bonus episode for Saturday coming out at 6 a.m. So just in about 5.5 hours now, it'll be out in the bonus episodes. 6 a.m., we're going to be talking more about Roger Rosengarten and Adisa Isaac in the Ravens day 3 targets as we gear up for day 3. So stay tuned for all that. Be sure to subscribe, follow along, video form, audio form for 5 days a week of Ravens content. Really appreciate all the communities we built here in video form and audio form, social media, subtext. It's been an amazing journey, almost 5 years consistently for me here on Locked On Ravens. I can't wait to keep going. Again, coming up tomorrow, we'll be right back here, our normal 6 a.m. episode. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.